So I have one more clip I want to show you, and this is another example of, I guess, using analogies to refute misinformation. And this is a particular myth that whenever I respond to it, I use graphs. And I really like the approach here.
Back in the 1970s, all the scientists were freaking out about global cooling, that the Earth was heading for another ice age. But now they've done a complete 180 and we're talking about global warming. Why should we believe climate scientists when they can't make up their own minds? Well, that's an interesting question. Dude, you can't do that in here. Smoking's terrible for you, and the secondhand smoke is terrible for us. Well, sure. That's what scientists say now. But back in the 1950s, loads of scientists said smoking was great. Okay, very subtle. You're saying that the more scientists learned about smoking, the more they realized cigarettes made us sick. Not healthy. Exactly. And the more climate scientists learn about the planet, the more sure they are that we're making it hotter and hotter, not causing an ice age. Okay, sure. But you've got to admit, it's a pretty big U-turn. Everyone in the 70s was saying the Earth was going to cool down, and now they're saying the exact opposite. But that's the thing. Not everyone in the 70s was saying the Earth was going to cool down. What? Well, there were some scientists worried about global cooling in the 70s. But even back then, there was 6 times more research about global warming.
I was worried when the clip started because I thought that they were reinforcing the misconception that there was a consensus on cooling, and we know that there's not. There's actually a paper in the Bulletin of the American Meteorological Society, BAMS, that goes into not just the scientific literature of the time, but also the kind of the media reports of the time, and it shows that there was a consensus on warming even then, or a majority of science focused on warming even then.
And Skeptical Science has a debunking of this myth that takes that paper, and there's data, and we've plotted the graphs showing that over the 70s the
from the 40s forward,
right? But over the period of the 70s, when supposedly there was this big ice age scare, the vast majority of papers were predicting warming.
Right. So that's like that part of the bit was good. In the clip, it's a pretty visual gag, so I'm glad they included that because I was worried it was going to reinforce the myth.
Well, and it doesn't activate any of these identities that people are going to want to protect themselves against messages they don't want to hear. So I think it's probably really effective because people can say, oh yeah, that's something I can relate to. It's an example we've all heard, and there is consensus now that smoking is harmful. And it explains it in a way that's accessible, sticky, and nonpartisan.
Right, and no one is getting made fun of. Like, it's not condescending.
It's funny, but not attacking.
And we should also add, for the people listening, it's also funny because every character is played by the same person.
Right. And I think just on a technical level, I've got to give a lot of credit to Climate Adam, who's one of my favorite.
Is that who that is?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never seen any of his stuff before. That's good.
And he's one of my favorite climate communicators. He produces these videos, and the amount of work in putting himself, having conversations with himself is quite amazing. And then I find that this one is extraordinary because he's actually got 7 versions of himself all in the one screen. Like Orphan Black won an Emmy for just having like 4 of them on the screen at once. So
also it was a good show, but
it's a very good show. But that's not bad for a PhD student studying climate science.
Yeah, that's impressive, really impressive.
In fact, I would like to put a challenge to Climate Adam that I'd like to see him replicate that same effect, but with 97 scientists. So can he have 97 Climate Adams, and not all the same, they all got to look different in order to communicate the 97% consensus.
But don't we already have John Oliver doing that for us?
Well, I think that it would be a mistake for us to rest on our laurels and think that our job is done. I think if there's one,
can do this based on Cook et al. 2016. So it's a new visual bit for a new paper.
And if there's one mantra of this podcast, it's simple, clear messages repeated often by a variety of Climate Adams.